Afternoon, students. As we continue on this journey of neoplasia, we will be talking about a very important aspect of neoplasia, that is paraneoplastic syndromes. These paraneoplastic syndromes, from the name itself that it suggests, paraneoplastic, arising from malignancy or cancer, and they are syndromes that give an indication to the presence of malignancy in the body. These are basically triggered by altered immune system response to a neoplasm. If you remember, we had talked about autoimmunity, in which the body refuses to recognize the self as self. These are defined as clinical syndromes involving non-metastatic systemic effects that accompany the malignant disease. Important to note here is that the systemic effects are not because of malignancy but because of the non-metastatic systemic effects. Now, the collection of these symptoms are due to the substances that are produced by the tumor, which can be hormones, which can be proteins, which can be cytokines. And these symptoms may be of endocrine type, neuromuscular, musculoskeletal, cutaneous, hematologic, gastrointestinal, renal, cardiovascular, or cutaneous. Now, what is the basic pathophysiology? Whenever there is a malignancy in the body or a tumor formation, the body produces antibodies to fight against the tumor cells, obviously. And what do these antibodies do? They fight with the tumor cells and destroy them. But at times what happens is that these antibodies will cross-react with the normal tissues and destroy them, which may result in the paraneoplastic disorder. For example, antibodies of the T cells that are produced against the tumor may mistakenly attack the normal nerve cells, the normal musculoskeletal cells. It's a continuation of autoimmunity, what we had studied last time. That is, the antibodies that were meant to fight the tumor cells are fighting the normal cells of the body. These syndromes result from the production and release of physiologically active substances from the tumor. It is the tumor that releases these substances that cause these various syndromes. They can be proteins, they can be hormones, they can be cytokines, and at times these substances that are produced by the tumor serve as tumor markers. For example, alpha-fetoprotein in cases of liver malignancies, CEA in cases of uterine malignancies. Not going into much detail in the epidemiology, reported frequency ranges from 10 to 15%, and neurological paraneoplastic are usually the least in amount, that is in less than 1% of patients with cancer. There is no race or sex predilection, and people of all ages may be affected. Now, first of all, as you know, etiology is non-specific. You can have fever, anorexia, cachexia, you can have rheumatological symptoms as etiology. Now, the causes of in the bone symptom, in the muscular symptom, hypertrophic osteoarthropathy is a very important paraneoplastic syndrome, the etiology of which is quite unknown. But the autoimmune basis of the musculoskeletal paraneoplastic syndromes of polymyositis and dermatomyositis has been confirmed by the presence of the lymphoplasma cellular infiltrate of the muscular interstices and by the presence of muscle necrosis. Scleroderma and SLE can be related to the production of ANA. SLE has been covered in detail. You can have the endocrine syndromes. Now, the gastrointestinal syndromes that you can have alternate diarrhea, you can have alternate constipation. Now, they are up there, and there are the production of molecules by the tumor cells that will affect the motility and the secretory activity of the gut. For example, the medullary carcinomas of the thyroid produce prostaglandins that lead to malabsorption. Malignancies of the digestive system, especially the stomach, can lead to protein losing enteropathy. In hematological syndromes, you have increased in RBC count, that is erythrocytosis in response to hypoxia from the ectopic production of EPO. You can have anemia from chronic hemorrhages because from the ulcerated tumors, and they can be altered absorption of B12 and B6. You can have renal syndromes, most commonly secondary kidney amyloidosis. If there is amyloid deposition in the kidney without any presenting symptom of malignancy, you must screen the patient for malignancy. Cutaneous syndromes are one of the most common and important presenting features of paraneoplastic syndromes. Itching because of hypereosinophilia, very typical in Hodgkin's lymphoma. In Hodgkin's lymphoma, you have raised eosinophils, so that leads to itching. Itching can be the common symptom. There can be immune system depression and reactivation of the latent varicella zoster virus, adipose nodular necrosis of the subcutaneous tissue, characterized by the presence of dark reddish nodules in cases of pancreatic cancers. You can have flushes, you can have dermic melanosis. In neurological symptoms, autoantibodies, that is the antibodies that were once produced to fight the tumor cells, are now directed against the central neurons and the brains, and they often present in the serum and in the CSF. Now, patients with cerebellar paraneoplastic disorders usually have degenerative loss of molecular, granular and the Purkinje layers of the cerebellar cortex. Paraneoplastic encephalitis commonly have lymphocytic infiltration. Now, you can see the erythema and the scaly hyperkeratotic plantar lesions. You can see in dermatomyositis, the red scaly papules and the reddish discoloration of the skin. As you can see in pyoderma gangriosa, you can have a big ulcerated lesion with erythema all over the lesion. Now, you can see there is the trichomegaly of the eyelashes. You can see in pulmonary adenocarcinoma paraneoplastic acrokeratosis. The patient basically is a case of CA lung, but you can see cutaneous syndromes as the presenting syndromes. You can see acrokeratosis. Acro means hand or foot. Keratosis means increased keratin deposition. Now, tylosis, that is the Howell-Evans syndrome, in which the plasmoplantar keratoderma associated with esophageal cancer. Now, what are the diagnostic considerations? The first point is most important, that early recognition of these paraneoplastic syndromes can lead to clues to the underlying condition or the underlying malignancy, and thus avoid diagnostic errors and permit earlier treatment and diagnosis. For example, if you have a knowledge about paraneoplastic syndromes, you know that these paraneoplastic syndromes can be the presenting features of malignancy. Then the moment the patient presents to us with such a kind of syndrome, we investigate the patient for cancer along with treating the current condition. What happens at times, if you do not have idea about these paraneoplastic syndromes, you just continue the treatment of the patient without investigating the patient for malignancy. Now, these PNS can evolve over weeks, maybe rarely 1 to 3 years, and they may stabilize regardless of the patient's underlying conditions. Because PNS may be the first and the only manifestation of cancer, patients without a known cancer who present with one of the typical paraneoplastic syndromes should undergo investigation for cancer, and if at all no underlying cancer is found, the patient must undergo surveillance. Now, what are the other disorders and the differential diagnosis? The list is large, but in short, I will be just talking about encephalopathy, myelitis. You can have bone marrow failure, chronic fatigue syndrome, glomerulonephritis, polycythemia vera, and SLE. SLE covered in detail. Polycythemia vera will be talked about when we take your classes in hematology. Now, how do you diagnose them? Patients with suspected paraneoplastic disorder should undergo a complete panel of laboratory studies, including blood, urine, CSF, and selection of further studies is dictated or it is demanded by the clinical presentation of the patient. Endoscopy can detect tumors of the esophageal tract, the respiratory tree, skin, for histopathological diagnosis necessary for patient with facial papules to distinguish benign from malignant lesions, imaging studies. Now, FDG PT scans can detect extremely small tumors and are especially useful for patients with neurological disorders. Normal patient presents to you with neurological symptoms, paraneoplastic syndrome. So what you do fluorodeoxyglucose positron emission tomography, nowadays known as FDG PET scan. In blood cells, you have the CBC that will show you anemia. Anemia can result from different type of cancer, but it can also occur in normal benign conditions. You can have you can do total leukocyte count, differential leukocyte count, and in case you have hypereosinophilia, you must investigate the patient for Hodgkin's lymphoma and platelet count for disseminated intravascular coagulation, because DIC is also very common presentation for malignancies. ESR is usually increased in patients with cancer. ESR is a very non-specific in investigations. It is increased in rheumatoid arthritis, TB, in malignancies. However, it's a non-specific marker and it can be elevated in a variety of disorders. Blood enzymes, for example, increased plasma levels of ALT, AST, LDH, alkaline phosphatase are commonly observed in patients with digestive system and also in muscle injury. For example, ALT, AST and alkaline phosphatase. Alkaline phosphatase is where You find it in liver disorders, you find it in bone tumors. Protein electrophoresis can tell you about the alterations in the albumin levels and increased beta globulins and the gamma globulin levels. Gamma globulin levels are always increased in patients with autoimmune disorders, whether neoplastic or no. So gamma globulin level will not be able to differentiate whether this PNS is due to malignancy, but it will be able to tell you that there is some immune mechanism behind this. Tumor markers are very, very useful for diagnosis of cancers that are clinically silent, but at times all markers are not specific. For example, CEA in tumors of breast, lung, digestive tract. Although PSA is increased in patients with prostatic disorders, it is also increased in benign disorders as well as in prostate cancer. Calculating the free PSA as a percentage of the total PSA can help to differentiate benign from malignant disorders. You can have autoantibody assays. For example, patients with PNS may have autoantibodies against several tissues, but very difficult to be conducting autoantibodies assay. However, most of the known autoantibodies are directed against nervous system. Imaging, you can have CT, you can have MRI, you can have scintigraphy, you can have PT, and you can have single photon emission computed tomography known as SPECT, SPECT. Treatment varies depending upon the type and location. Two general treatments are usually there. First option is treatment of the underlying tumor. That is, you have found what is the tumor, you treat the tumor. The PNS can at times subside. For example, therapeutic protocols are applied to the disease in patients without paraneoplastic syndromes. The second therapeutic option is clearly identifiable antibodies in the serum. When you find autoantibodies and when you have found an element of autoimmunity, what is the treatment? Immunosuppression. How can you do immunosuppression? Intravenous immunoglobulins, you can have steroids, you can have immunosuppressive drugs, or plasmapheresis or plasma exchange. Surgical is typically directed towards the underlying neoplasm. For example, some paraneoplastic disorders may resolve rapidly with the surgery of the primary tumor. For example, hypertrophic osteoarthropathy is a very important paraneoplastic syndrome that usually regresses with the resection of the tumor or with the ipsilateral vagus nerve. Immunosuppressive drugs, these agents promote immune suppressor cell function, and they are related to the production of autoimmune reactions. These agents also help to suppress immune reactions like the lymphocyte immune globulins. Corticosteroids, most important, prednisolone, orazone, sterapred. Immunosuppressants are very important treatment for autoimmune disorders. So with this backdrop, we have covered in short about the paraneoplastic syndromes. If I get an extra lecture with you, I will be talking to you once again in detail about a few paraneoplastic syndromes, and I will also be giving you an online class regarding the tumor host interactions that occurs in neoplasia. Thank you.